Okay, guys, we're going to finish up the notes from yesterday. So we learned about 3 transformations so far. Number 1 was a translation, which we call a slide, in which case the y-intercept changes. Number 2 was a rotation, which we also call a turn, and it turns about the y-intercept of the point 0b, in which case the slope changes. And lastly, we learned about a reflection, which can also be called a flip. There's y-axis reflection, in which case the slope changes to its opposite. And then there's x-axis reflection, in which case the slope and y-intercept, that's m and b. I don't know if that looks like an m, but that's an m. In which case m and b both change to the opposite, okay? So let's take a look at these practice problems and see if we can tell what transformation has happened to the original function. So in number 1, the original function is 3x minus 2. And then the new function is negative 3x minus 2. So I can see that the change has gone from a slope of 2 to a slope of negative 2. And if you have to look back at this, go ahead. But I tried to put things up here so you can see it. So when only the slope changes to its opposite and the y-intercept stays, that's going to be a reflection, guys. Slope changes to its opposite, it's going to be y-axis reflection. All right, let's take a look at 2. 2, the original function is f of x equals 3x plus 5. And g of x is 3x minus 4. In both, the slope is 3. So the slope didn't change. But in the f of x function, b is 5. And here, b is negative 4. So when the y-intercept changes, it's a translation. So I can say that this is translated or slid. So it went from 5 to negative 4. So it went down 9 units because 5 minus 9 is what equals negative 4. So it's translated 9 units down, guys. Let's take a look at 3. F of x equals to 5x minus 4 and g of x equals to 2x minus 4. Well, the b is the same in both. But here, the slope has changed, and not to its opposite, but it just changed in a numerical value. So when the slope changes, and not to its opposite, guys, changing to its opposite would be the reflections. It's just going to be a rotation or a turn about this y-intercept. So I'm going to say it's rotated about the y-intercept, which is negative 4. So the point will be 0, negative 4. And if I look at the steepness, I want to talk about the steepness. I know that the absolute value of 5 is 5. Absolute value of 2 is 2. So remember we talked about, you can tell the steepness of a line by looking at the slope and taking the absolute value of the slope. The greater the absolute value of the slope, the steeper the line. Well, this slope is steeper in the f of x function. So I'm going to say f of x is steeper than g of x. Or if I like to start off with my original function, so I'll say f of x is steeper than g of x. But you could have also said g of x is less steep than f of x. Totally up to you. It's the same thing. Let's take a look at 4. 4 f of x has a slope of negative 4. and a y-intercept of positive 3. And g of x has a slope of positive 4 and a y-intercept of negative 3. Well, both the slope and the y-intercept are opposites. So when the slope and the y-intercept are opposites, we say it's x-axis reflection. Or you can say it's a flip across or over the x-axis. It's the same thing. All right, let's take a look at number 5. And you can pause the video and try it if you want to. Here in f of x, the slope is 1 and b is 4. Here the slope is 1 and b is 10. So we know when the slopes are the same, these lines are going to be parallel, which is a giveaway. That only the y-intercept is changing. So I have to add 6 to get to 10. 4 plus 6 will put me at a b of 10. So this means that f of x was translated six units up. That's all you do. All right, so I'm just going to be looking at, because these are not labeled, I'm going to say that this is f of x and this is g of x. It should be labeled. So what am I doing to f of x to get to g of x? So I know these lines are parallel, so I know only the y-intercept's changing. It's a slide. So I'm going to say f of x is translated, and that we'll have to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units up. Okay. And we'll say the purple line is f of x, which we'll say is our original function. Let me go ahead and label these. So we're saying f of x is going to be our original, okay? All right, let's take a look at this one. I can already tell you on this one, I need to get rid of those dots, that this point has basically been flipped over the x-axis and become that point. This point has been flipped over the x-axis and has become that point. Or this point has been flipped over the x-axis and has become that point, okay? So this looks like to me a reflection over the x-axis. Now, if you're not sure about that, guys, I'm going to tell you what you can do. Let me erase this. You can write the equations of both lines and see if their slope and y-intercepts are different. So if I write the equation for f of x, I can see that's at -2, b is -2, and here b is +2. So I can see that opposites. And I'm not going to write it out. I think I'll just show you what I'm talking about. So I can see the y-intercepts are opposites. And then if I look at the slopes, the purple line has a slope of 1, 2, and then a run of, and make sure I can go somewhere where it's where it touches the line, or I can call it out. And these are hard to see. 2, 1, 2, 3, And that's not quite 4 to the left. But let's just see if this one is somewhat the same. I know that's going to be negative. It's 2 and about -4 to the left. When it's not quite -4, though, guys. That's why it's hard to write this function or this equation. All right, this is a slope down 2. And to the left, not quite 4. But a negative over a negative is a positive. So we can see that these are opposites of one another. So the slope and the y-intercepts are opposites, which will also help you see its x-axis reflection. But I can just look at it and tell that you've crossed the x-axis. Okay, let's take a look at number 8. I need to make it a little smaller. Okay, sorry guys. All right, so I'm going to take a look at number 8 and see if I can figure out what's going on. It looks like that's a fixed point between the both of them. Okay. And I can tell right here that if I look at f of x, this thing looks like it's been rotated here. And then if I push this down, it looks like it's been rotated there. So it's turning about a fixed point. So this is what I call a rotation about, let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 0, 3. And I'm looking at f of x is the original line. F of x is less steep than g of x. Now, I don't know what happened in 9, so we won't worry about it. All right, let's talk about some multiple transformations. You all know the 3 transformations, but sometimes you can have multiple transformations, and they're really easy. Heads up. It says describe the transformation from f of x to g of x. Well, this has a slope of 1, and this has a slope of 3. This has a y-intercept of 0, and this has a y-intercept of 1. So what I'm going to say first is I'm going to start off with this y-intercept. I'm going to say that the y-intercept b is 0, here b is 1. I'm going to say that this f of x is translated 1 unit up. And also the slopes are different. They're not opposites, they're just different. So I know it's been rotated about a point, and that's going to be our y-intercept. And we're going to go to the y-intercept of the new function g of x. Let's put and. Look at the new function about 0, 1. It's rotated about 0, 1. So let me explain to you what I'm talking about. So f of x equals to x is just y equals to x. So that's 1, 1, a slope of 1, and a y-intercept of 0. Up 1, right 1. Up 1, right 1. Up 1, right 1. Or you could go down 1 and left 1, okay? I'm just sketching y equals to x, this right here. And I see that it's gone to this function. That means that the y-intercept has moved from 0 to 1. So that's that plus 1. And now I have a slope of 3 over 1. So this slides up 1, and the slope goes 3 over 1. Or could go down 1, 2, 3, and left 1. All right, so this thing is being rotated. I could go up 3 over 1 again. Again, I'm sketching. Down 1, 2, 3. over 1. Sorry, I didn't even put that dot there. Over 1. So this graph is going to look something like this. Okay. So after you shift up 1, gosh, sorry. I keep thinking I have my pen up, but it's the eraser. So after this thing shifts up 1, it begins to rotate counterclockwise. So it'll go up 1 first. I'm going to erase this whole line. So this thing will shift up 1 first, and it'll rotate. This thing will shift because the slope is steeper. So it's going to get steeper. So it's going to rotate that way. And the new line will look like this. Okay. All right, let's take a look at 2. Start off with the y-intercept. So I'm going from a y-intercept of 0 to a y-intercept of 2. So this thing is going to translate 2 units up, or slide 2 units up. And look at the slope. The slope has gone from positive 1 to negative 1. So what happens when the slope changes to its opposite? So when only the slope changes to its opposite, it's y-axis reflection. So what's going to happen is it's going to go slide 2 units up, and then it's going to flip across the y-axis. That's what the new graph will look like compared to the original graph. All right, let's take a look at 3. Again, I always start up with the y-intercept, okay? When there's multiple transformations. All right, here the y-intercept is 0. Here the y-intercept is negative 3. So I know this has been translated 3 units down. And the slope has gone from negative 2 to negative 1. The slope has changed, but not to its opposite. It's just changed. So, and it's been rotated. About the new point, the new y-intercept, which is at negative 3. So what I'll do is I'll take that y equals the negative 2x function, which starts at 0. It goes down to into the right 1, or up to into the left 1. So if I sketch it out, it'll kind of look like that. But this thing will end up sliding down 3. Down 1, 2, I'm just estimating. It'll slide down 3. And because it's less steep, it's going to be rotated this way, okay? About this point. Once it slides down, it'll rotate around this point right here. Let's take a look at 4. All right, it says a florist charges $25 for a vase plus $4.50 for each flower. The total charge for the vase and flowers is given by this function. Of course, that's just the same as y equals to 450x plus 25. 25 is our initial value, or our initial charge. So that 25 is equal to B. 450 for each flower. That's a rate statement, so that's your slope. So that's just how they set it up in y equals mx plus b form. Or you can say 450 times X plus 25 will give you the total charge. Just use common sense. It says, how will the graph change if the vase's cost is raised $35 and the charge is lowered to $3? So if I raise the vase's cost $35, which means I got to increase the cost $35. It didn't say raise the vase's cost to $35. You just raise the cost $35, okay? And I don't like it being, I think I'm gonna put the word to in there because that can be confusing. Just to make sure you're not gonna be confused. You know what? Let's just leave it at 35. It's not 2. All right, so if I raise this cost 35 and the initial value is initially 25, if I raise it 35, that means I gotta add 35 to it, okay? All right, and then the charge is lowered to $10. $3, I'm sorry. All right, so I already know B is gonna go from 25 to 60, because that's what happens if you raise something $35 and it was originally 25. All right, and this is gonna be G of X. I'm gonna call it the new one, G of X. And the slope is lowered to $3. In other words, instead of $4.50 for each flower, it's gonna be $3 for each flower. So it's gonna be G of X equals to 3X plus 60. So I can see that according to the graph, if I were to graph this one, it would have originally had a y-intercept of 25. But now this has a y-intercept of 60. So I can say this thing has been translated. Excuse me. It's been translated 35 units up. F of X is translated 35 units up. And rotated, because the whole slope has changed, guys. It's been rotated about the new slope, with the new y-intercept. Hold on, I'm sorry. So rotated about 0.60. Because the slopes change. But you start off and you shift it first. You translate it first. According to the y-intercept, it's going to go up 35 units and then it'll shift. But it's going to rotate going down because the slope has gone from 450 to 3. So G of X is going to be less steep than F of X. All right, guys, that's it for the notes. You're going to go and try your study guide. You're not going to finish your study guide today. So you'll work on the study guide tomorrow. And if you just kind of let me know, email me, let me know if you finished. If you finished, we'll, have a review. Make sure we answer all the questions on Monday when I get back. And our test will be on Tuesday. If you don't finish, email me, tell me, Miss Blue, I didn't finish, and this is going to be on Friday. If you don't finish tomorrow, and email me and say, Miss Blue, we didn't finish today on Friday. We're going to need to finish on Monday, and then at that particular case, while that you finish on Monday, we can review the answers on Tuesday, and the test will be on Wednesday. All right. Thanks, guys.